it. This will be now part 3 of our cheap non-Promaster transmission into a Promaster transmission swap. Oh, I'm double jointed. Oh, that's the stuff. All right. Welcome back, kids. Back to part 3 of getting this goddamn fake transmission in a real Promaster. This is DJ Free Labor, as you may recall. Look, he's all grown up. He's got new hair. There you go. That's how the cool kids wear it. I got my other kid back here doing free labor. That's right. As it should be. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Now, you've seen other videos of mine where I R&R transmission, but it's a good opportunity to do something. And with 2 of us, maybe we can film it a little bit better. What have we done so far? We've disconnected the battery. I read all the codes and stored them before I did so. And also, so now, I don't know if you can see. Well, I know you can't see. Go grab the camera so that they may see. And we're going to be taking the tires off. We're going to be taking the suspension apart and the axles out because the axles go into the transmission and that has to come out. And then we're going to do some other stuff. This job is, I believe it books at 6.9 hours to R&R transmission. But my feeling is you got to be pretty damn good, or you got to have it up over your head. I don't, and I don't care to. I don't want an 8'3" van, 17 feet in the air. I'm not interested in that. So we've just got it on jack stands. And it would take me easily 8 hours. And also, I'm fat and old and lazy and slow and dumb and whatever. But with 2 of us, maybe we'll get it in and out today. We'll see what happens. I don't know exactly how detailed this video is going to be, but I'm going to show you some highlights along the way. Obviously, you're here for not the mechanics of the transmission swap, the mechanics of making this fake transmission work. Show it to them. It's right there. Look, she's all ready to go. All right, kids. Quick addendum. I understand it's noisy. Here you have from a junk transmission that came out of, I believe, a Chrysler 200. Pretty sure it was a Chrysler 200. Don't think it really matters, as we've determined. But anyway, because I had this here, I wanted to count it. So I went ahead and did. As you can see, I've marked it out, ring and pinion. 79 on the ring, 25 on the pinion, and I believe that gives us the 3.16. Which is about what I thought it would. So from there, there will be some calculations. All right, now as always, I apologize for the noise. Labor. We're going to see if my new fancy gun, go ahead, is going to break this axle nut loose, because we got to get the axles out to get the transmission out. Push it on, man. There you go. All right, so we're on the 3rd setting. Mr. Fancy $300 gun. Show me the magic. Who's your daddy? All right, nice. Put that in the tray, do the other side. All right, this is a hot tip. I get these little bins at Meijer. I think they're 14 bucks. They come with a lid. I have one for tranny, one for motor oil, and one for coolant. I mix them up. But anyway, when we pop these axles out, it's going to likely drip some fluid. So the smart person does that first rather than after. So go ahead and slide that underneath, Hank, and put it under the center of the transmission so that when the axles pop out, the fluid would likely go in there. The way this works, what allows you to do this is anything pointy. It could be a straight bar or whatever. But you see this hole in the control arm here, this hole in the lower control arm where that's going to seat. As I pull this down, as soon as I take the ball joint bolts out, then the lower control arm will drop and I'm able to pop the hub and pop the axle out from behind the hub. You'll see me do it, but that's the basic gist of how that works. You can see that I'm now, the whole hub and the bottom of the strut is free. So now what I can do is I can push axle back through, and I often have to be down to do it. You've seen me struggle with this many times. Oh. As Hank's giving it downward pressure, what I'm doing is I'm driving the axle right in the eyes, all the rust. And I am going to take it out from the front side, if I can. Like so. And because the ball joint is totally free, I can push the hub out quite far. Now, the axle is free. The axle is free. I'm going to use this pry tool to pop it out of the transmission, and I have the pan here ready in case it's going to want to leak. Doesn't take much. What you don't want to do, by the way, is pull the joins apart because you'll destroy them, and that would be bad. The other side is going to be basically identical, except that there's an intermediate shaft that's held to the back of the block by 3 16mm bolts in a little triangle thing. You have two choices. You can separate the axle. Here, let's show you. Come around to this side. Huh? All right, so this is called the carrier bearing. The intermediate shaft, which takes the axle to the side of the transmission, and then would be the passenger side axle. You can separate it here if you want, but because we're removing the transmission, we need this intermediate shaft that goes into the transmission out. I prefer to take the whole thing as assembly. If you go up here with a deep well 16mm bolt, there's 3 bolts that hold this piece to the side of the block. And once those 3 are out, this will rotate, and then the whole axle, you can pop it as you see like I did. You pop it at this end, and then you take the axle and the intermediate shaft out together, and then you don't have to fuck with this joint because this thing's kind of a pain in the ass. Hank is under there right now doing the flex plate bolts. Yeah?
Yeah.
How many did you get?
None.
None?
I got the first one started though.
Oh, all right. It's not that tight.
Yeah.
You don't need to be that tight. And Girl Wonder over here is
Doing something.
got to send her inside to do the nastier stuff. Iris, I need to send you up top there to get all that crap. But, you know, free labor is free labor. It wasn't worth it. Yeah, don't have children because you expect to get free labor. It doesn't work out for you.
He never expected that.
This is the first day.
He thinks he's so funny.
Yeah.
He thinks he's hilarious.
In 2 months, you'll be 17. This is the first day I've got usable labor out of both of you. And certainly the last. All right, Hank, the main lesson, the main takeaway here, you know what it is? Don't go into auto mechanics.
Yes.
All right, good. How do you feel about Motorhead, Hank?
Lily, some spice.
I'm gonna try not to look at you so I don't blind you. So I'm gonna be doing, there's no reason I can't do the bottom mount here. Here, 27, right? No, what is this? 27, it must be 24. Stand by. This is 24, is 24. That wasn't 24. Okay, anyway. My recollection is that I'm gonna have to get up one more time because this won't fit, but it's a new gun. And I was right. So I can do this one though. Let's see if this gun has the stones. Do you have the stones? Now this transmission's been out before, so not super fair. Nah. Come on, baby bitch. She's a big old honking bolt. Bastard. So looking at this, aside from being quite hot, that is melted, or something got in the threads because it's not cross-threaded there and it's not cross-threaded there, but there's aluminum mashed into the threads there. As you can see. So that got pretty fucking hot. So, but it doesn't matter. We're replacing this piece and this piece, or we can. And this is where the threads are in the back of this. I would probably be able to run a chase down there and see if the threads are okay, but that's cool. I'll show you something while we're here. Is it still rolling?
Yes.
So what we'll end up doing when the trans starts coming out, to get this biscuit out, this biscuit piece, I'm going to, I'll have the bigger one, but I can move the engine. Let me grab it like this, yes. You you can see what I'm going to do. The engine, remember how I said this prevents the engine from rotating so that the tires rotate instead? Well, if it wasn't there, the engine is able to swing it quite a bit. So what I'll do is what I can do is I can push it back like this. If I can get it to come off of there, which I will, I'll give a beat on it. But it'll actually slide back in there a bit. And then by either jacking or doing what I'm doing, which is kind of prying on this, I'll make the engine get out of the way so I can get this in and out. That's how that's done. All right, this will be very difficult to show, but this is the hardest part about a transmission swap. This piece I'm holding is the shift cable, and that goes through and that little part grabs the ball. But this part is a very weird connector. You need to squeeze it on the side and it fits through an opening. See, that's the top of it with that half moon thing. But these have to, it pulls through a thing and then these spring out and grab it. And you need to squeeze it and push it back, but it's very difficult to get to. I'll show you on the other transmission, would make more sense. All right, looking around, I don't have a junk shifter to show you, but the way that works, this is obviously the bell housing side. So the cable comes in here, and those little things spring out and it locks on here and it grabs the shift lever. So that's park right there. Makes sense, right? Well, you can't just take the bracket out. That one's easy to get to, but that one's buried under the transmission mount. So you kind of can't, I mean, you could, I guess, but the thing is, you've got to squeeze those connectors to allow this thing to slide back. What I have found, it's easy if you got two people. Put one person on the bottom, pulling back on it, and if you got strong hands or whatever. And if you got strong hands, you can do it, but as you can see, you're bent over on the ladder there, trying to reach, and I don't know, I'm just stubby like that. Anyway, the technique I have found that sometimes work, I mean, it took me about an hour just now to get this out, and I've done this dozens of times, is a tool of this type, where I could squeeze it and push this way at the same time, because you can't see it, you can't get your head in there. You can kind of get to it from the side, but then you can't see what you're doing. You can't reach it, and so on. So this was the tool that worked. You would squeeze it and push, and as soon as one side flips through, obviously then it flips through. And when you go back in, it just clicks right in. It's easy, but that may be the single hardest part of this whole transmission swap. All right, this guy is often quite difficult. We're doing the top bolt, the post bolt. I don't know, you call it whatever you want. There's a couple different ways to do this, but that's got to come out, even if the mount comes out and comes up so the thing can drop down. It may not have enough room to drop straight down because there's quite a long post in there. Anyway, what this is going to look like is that, and then I'm going to add a bar to it because it is tight. And I don't know, I'll try and film that. All right, I've moved the pivot point, so I'm a little closer to vertical. I've got a universal on there as well. Joint kind of looking thing. Maybe we'll get lucky. Probably not. Okay, I realize it's noisy, but I just want to give you an overview. I will not be able to film this next section, but I have other videos on this. But the general gist right now is that all the transmission bell housing bolts except one are out. Not that it would matter because the two dowel pins are in and it can't fall. I also have a jack supporting the transmission and a jack supporting the engine, which is quite important. If you forget that, the engine will fall out and it will fall onto the exhaust and it will break an axle on its way out. No, it won't break an axle because you've already taken the axles. Oh, it'll fall straight out and land on the exhaust and tear all its wiring. Ask me how I know. That's out. The rear mount is out. Once I pull that one bolt, now that the top post mount is out, in theory, it can drop straight down. I may have to go and take that top mount physically off, and then it's free to do whatever it is. Matter of fact, I think I will, because that's just going to make it easier. Well, here, come with me. Get close to me. As you can see well, you can see if I think. There is the transmission mount, and that's the post sticking out of the top of it. That's the bolt I was just doing. And overall, it's got to be 3 or 4 inches long once it gets through the whole transmission mount. What I can do is 1, 2, 3 bolts and then pull this up, and then it's free to swing. I suppose while I'm here, I'll show you. That is a Harbor Freight transmission jack. Probably 40 years old. Well, maybe not, it's a Pittsburgh, but whatever. That part doesn't really matter. What matters is that I've built this cradle out of wood, which you've seen in other things. To do this without that, because you can see it's shape cut, which I did with a contour gauge, very cheap, very simple. That is super important because if you just have a regular flat transmission jack, the bottom of this thing is round and it's going to want to roll. It's awful. There's no way to prevent it from doing that either. You can strap it down as much as you want, but you're going to have to figure out a way to block it from the bottom. I've used the Harbor Freight motorcycle jack. I think it's under $100 these days, and some blocks just to support the engine. What's nice about the motorcycle jack is this will probably drop over time, but this is the physical stop. See how that works. Once that gets there, it can't fall out. It can only drop an inch or so. The important thing to know is when this thing comes out with that upper mount post on it, you won't be able to get this jack low enough to get the thing out. And what you'll have to do is tumble the transmission off the jack and drag it out on the floor. Well, it took a while of trial and error, but I figured out a way to not have to do that, because tumbling the transmission off the jack is fine, but what do you do when you want to go get it back in? You're going to need 5 guys under there to try and bench press it up onto the lift. What actually works better is, you can see the side thing, the post, that'll drop low enough where if I just pull this, I unbolt a couple things and I pull this off, it'll fit, it'll slide out here. It'll get low enough. It is a quandary that there is no sort of flat jack like that goes low enough and then high enough. The motorcycle jack, you'll notice I have wood blocks. That's not to cushion the oil pan, it's to get the jack tall enough to make this Magilla work. And same story over here. This thing absolutely goes high enough, but it does not go low enough, because you can see even when the Pittsburgh jack is all the way down, there's still, I don't know, 6 inches or something of thing. So it never gets low enough. So that's a quandary. But I'll show you as it comes out. Getting that post out is just a matter of wrestling that. And I believe I have a way, I can't remember, but I believe I have a way of doing it with just one bolt. One bolt gets this loose enough, I think it's probably here, obviously, gets it out of the way enough for you to get in and out under it. Then I can remove and place the new transmission on with a cherry picker or something. It won't be quite the struggle. Because, man, these transmissions is like, oh, peace and quiet. These transmissions are heavier than they look. And me and Hank had trouble. I mean, we just took it down off the bench. It took 3 of us to get it on the bench, and I usually don't have any help for that kind of thing. So it's a whole deal. All right, let's move on. All right, kids. Well, I didn't film a bunch of this stuff. The stuff you didn't see is me taking the transmission lines off, which you can do at the top of the transmission, which is kind of funky, or you can just do it at the transmission cooler, which just requires 1 Allen bolt, pretty simple. The electrical connector on the front of the transmission, I have a separate video on how to get that off. It's not difficult. And then the transmission comes out and falls on your toe, as you would expect. It is out now, but there is one important thing I neglected to mention, and I suppose it's upon me to mention it. And that is, there was a technical service bulletin, a recall essentially, on what they call on the left side transmission mount bracket. And I'm going to show you what this is, and then I'm going to explain to you why I'm comfortable to ignore it. I would never ignore it on your vehicle if you were a customer, but I'm happy to ignore it at my own peril. But let me show you what this is. All right, what you're seeing here is the TSB on this issue, and we're going to read it together. VF is the body designation of the Promaster, kind of like a JK Jeep or a JL, or whether VF is what they call it anyway. This message is, I'll read in case you're illiterate. This message is related to the 2014 through 2020 VF Promaster vehicles equipped with the Pentastar engine and the 6-speed transmission. The fastener used on 14 through 20 of the Promaster are of a single-use type and cannot, I stress, be reused. Once the fasteners are torqued, they must be replaced upon any removal. The torque of the fasteners is a higher torque than normal size fasteners. Check the service information for the torque. The notice is important in replacing the torque in the bolts of one to the left. The fact of notice these brackets, as they may lead to bracket bolt failure. Be sure to check all the blah 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 and check this information and blah blah blah. Replace the bracket and isolator on any Promaster with the gas engine and have been built before October of 2015. Now, I have a theory as to what this is about. Seeing here, the bracket, the post that you saw that goes up into the upper mount bracket is retained to the body of the transmission with 4 bolts. That will be different, this arrangement. It's similar but different on a Journey or a minivan or whatever. And I believe that the reason that this TSB exists is because if the van gets hit in the driver's side corner, even if it just hits a curb or slides or somebody sideswipes you or whatever, because there's no front mount holding the transmission anti-spin mount isn't in the front like it is in a minivan or a Journey, it's in the back on a Promaster. I theorize that because that structure isn't there, if this gets hit, that stress is taken up here, so that at some point this mount pad may crack, meaning that if the thing gets hit, it's going to do more damage to here than it otherwise would with a front mount that's in line to take some of that stress off this particular point. I believe that's why they've spec'd this TSB, and they've spec'd special bolts to buy, which are going to be stronger torque to yield bolts that deal with this. My feeling, and I don't know if I can recommend this in good conscience, but I'm just going to tell you what my feeling is that I feel this is ignorable, because without a front hit like that, this isn't going to crack and the transmission isn't going to fall out. Now, if you search all the interwebs, you'll find 2 or 3 reports of that cracking and the transmission actually falling out. But I think it's due more to this not being able to take the stress of a driver's side front hit, and that those 3 vans or whatever were involved in some kind of driver's side front incident. So I feel okay that those 4 giant bolts are strong enough to, I mean, the bolts are as big as, you know, and they're big old honking chunks of metal. But use your own judgment. I believe this kit is, well, you know, I'm going to find out what this kit costs. All right, here we are on the dealer site, and you can see they're showing the exploded view of the various things. Let's see what this is, number 6. They're saying, call out, they're saying $5.80 per bolt. That is not part of a whole kit, huh? That's odd. Is it included in here? Holy mother of inlaid pearl. They want $747 for that goddamn thing? They can bite me. All right, here we are. Summit sells it for 70 bucks. The upper transmission mount, basic bits and pieces. I see no reason for paying that kind of dough at the dealer. They can just yank me harder. All right, and this concludes part 3. Been slow going. I've still got a couple more things to do, and then the new one goes back in, and then we get to part 3. That's going to be exciting. So what we're going to be doing is putting that in, driving it around, watching it code, figuring out what it's going to do, then buying the software that I believe can correct as a function of tire size, subtract 18% of the tire size, and we should be able to get it back up to where it should be, and then the thing should run normally, although it should limit itself to 5th gear for the most part. All right, stay tuned for part 4, because that was fun. Special thanks to my kids. I had to pay them each $6 to do that labor. Not worth it. Wrap it up. That's all I can tell you. Whatever you do, don't have children. Goodbye. She's a goddamn lovely man. She's a